Kevin, great to see you. Welcome to Popternative.
Thanks. It's good to be here.
You know, it's interesting because I really love the script to screen journey, and a movie like this, we're talking about the zombie wedding. I mean, it's so fun, but it's so packed with so many elements. It's funny, it's gory, it's goofy, it's dramatic. What is that like specifically for this one? Reading it and then seeing it kind of come to life on screen, so to speak, like while you start filming it.
Well, it's interesting how specific things jump out at you. I loved the satire of it,
Yeah.
the satire of tabloid journalism. And I was really hooked in by the whole idea of Weekly World News producing their first film.
Yeah.
And I was, I don't think I've ever bought one, but, everyone's seen it at the supermarket. And I think I was originally drawn in by the Bat Boy cover. But the movie, it is wild because it's satirical. It's also romantic,
Yep.
and also a crazy idea. There's not a lot. I mean, I can count on one hand the number of really funny zombie films. I'm not that in tune with the genre, but that's what I really loved about it, and it just has a great satirical edge to it. And then the cast, I was really that's one of the reasons why I signed on. I mean, Sherry O'Terry and Siobhan Fallon and all these great actors that some of them are friends of mine, and so I was just really hooked in, and I was really pleased with the. I mean, it's so parts of the movie are so funny and absurd.
Yeah.
That's what I really loved
Well,
about
it's a
it.
unique concept too, right? The idea of like the humans and the zombies like coming together too, if you think about it, right? Like, did you notice that in the script too? That's unique.
Well, yeah, it's very metaphorical. I mean, the zombie genre has always been that. And I was reminded of the early during the AIDS crisis in the 80s. There were a lot of romantic. Well, not there were some romantic comedies too about a serodiscordant relationship and how you figure that out. And so that kind of metaphor jumped out at me as well. How do you have a relationship with someone who is possibly terminally ill?
And it's interesting too because you brought up, the zombie component of it. It's got the romance and everything. It's kind of one of those films as we kind of head into spooky season right now that is just a fun kind of weekend kind of watch with your friends and everything. Horror movies have always been around, and I don't know necessarily if you kind of considered it straight up like a horror movie because the genre is getting so complex now, Kevin, with the genre bending and everything. But like, it has some of those elements in it, right? That like horror
Yeah.
movie fans would watch, this film. So what's it like being part of that kind of universe and world of the horror movie fan landscape at a time where there's a big appetite for a lot of that content right now? I'm curious if you ever think about that.
There seems to be, and it seems like I've been doing a horror project every year in my career. I was actually involved in Scream the musical, which had a big hit run here in Los Angeles that my husband actually wrote and produced and starred in. And so I love the genre. I think the more diverse it is, the better. And a zombie is a genre in and of itself. So I think it's made its mark really, and it's now time to deconstruct it and flip it on its head. And I think that's
Absolutely.
one of the things that this movie does.
I was telling you before we start, I'm also a filmmaker, but where I kind of, I think, learned my craft or really got interested in storytelling is the theater, where you kind of, did a lot of things there too. Because I was not, I was like stage crew, right? So I did like I was the follow spot operator and the light operator for my high school productions. But there was something about the day of a performance. Like we'd be, 7 p.m. Eastern, full
Sure.
curtain, and like you'd wake up at 9 a.m. and it would be like so the whole day you're like, we're gonna perform in front of people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was like an energy, isn't it? It's crazy, right? Like it was one of the coolest things.
Yeah, and I think that's what when people say I caught the theater bug,
Yeah.
it really is this kind of hormonal change that goes through you that day of opening night. And
Yeah.
that's why I keep going back to do Broadway.
Absolutely. I'm wondering, so it's pretty cool because you look at your body of work and it's like different projects, different worlds, but you played so many different characters. And you can answer this specifically, with this project in particular, you know what I mean? And I'm just wondering, like, with the zombie wedding, like, how separate are past projects for you compared to something like the zombie wedding? Like, do you bring things like preparation wise, mindset wise from other projects to something like this, or are they completely separate
Sure.
once you wrap them?
Yeah, sure. Especially I've done a lot of Southern characters.
Yeah.
And so this guy is sort of pretty hicky and Southern Gothic. And so that definitely informs the role. Also, I have kind of 5 rules when I teach acting.
Yeah.
And one of them is that the content dictates the style. So you're not going to act the same way in a Disney Channel show that you would in like Law and Order.
Mhm.
And so the best actors that I know understand the style that you're acting in. And so if you have done that before, you bring that and that informs your choices in any of your next projects. But each one is also very unique. I mean, this was something that I'd never. It was actually really fun to play the non-zombie person in a zombie film.
True.
Didn't have an hour of makeup either, which is nice.
It's so true to think about. Yeah. And like, man, you mentioned Disney Channel. I mean, I can't, the Bertram, even when he wasn't on screen, I feel like that character, he was always like the punchline of jokes with like the kids and everything. Like you would never like there was
That's an
something.
adult.
Yeah.
Any adult on Disney Channel is the punchline.
Literally, I'm
usually
pretty
gets
sure,
like liquid.
he was punchlined every episode like 4 times.
Yes. Yeah.
Which
and usually covered in some sort of goop or salsa or dumped in a dunk tank or yeah. I was abused a lot.
and it's interesting too because you talked about like we talked about like the separation and like moving on because really the life of an actor, and I'm sure this is also the same from a Broadway perspective, like it really is the like on to the next, right? Like you do have this project where you're in it for a long period of time, and then you're with the same people for like many months, and then there's a chance you might not see those people like ever again or for a while because you're moving on to another project, right? And so are they and everything. But I'm wondering if you started thinking about the fact that with the digital age, Kevin, like a lot of the projects you've been in don't really have kind of a shelf life or might resurface a little bit. Like Jessie is a show that like sometimes on TikTok, there's a lot of moments that come up, right? You're in a movie that always is played around the holidays. You know what I mean? Even though you did that movie like years ago. Like I'm curious if you think about that specifically.
Well, it's fascinating to see what has shelf life and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And the fact that Jessie is now moving on to like a 3rd generation of kids.
Yeah.
We shot it starting 14 years ago.
Yeah.
And so there's 120 episodes and with the streaming thing, everything does last a lot longer.
Yeah.
Which most of the television work that I did, it was on once, and then it had a rerun once, and then you never see it again.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool with Jessie. Also with Jessie, I had never done anything for 4 years. The longest I'd done was a year on Broadway in a role. And that's saying the same lines every night. This was, you got a new script every week. It was really unique. And you were part of the process of developing that character. Like you look at the first season and Bertram's very different by time season 4 comes around.
Yeah.
And it just evolves and they take things from your own life. And the fact that I was in musical theater and they integrated that into the show. And that was really fun to be a part of something that you really felt like they were organically tapping into whatever your strengths were.
There's some Bertram TikToks that come up here and there. There's some cool moments, but I feel like a lot of it is just kind of like, moments where it's like Peyton just like roasting Bertram. Like Bertram got roasted all the time on that show.
It did. Bertram's become quite iconic though now. I mean, kids, there's some company in China that stole my image and have made tapestries, and I have hundreds of kids in college dorms have sent me pictures that my face is literally on the back of their couch. It's so weird. I don't know what Bertram, maybe it's his laziness or everyone's kind of desire to have a butler. I don't know what it was, but there was something iconic about Bertram, and
Yeah.
it lives on to this day.
Well, I think I know what it was. I think it was the level of the trifecta of the laziness, which was funny because it made you like laugh, right? And he was a butler who didn't want to do his job. So that is like, but that was like, that was probably part of the breakdown. You know what I mean? Like when you got the role, right? Like that was the shtick. But there's this sass, but there's this, like, he does care. So it's unique to think about the fact that there's like this lazy butler who actually
hates children,
cares about
but
the children.
secretly
You know what I
cares,
mean by that?
Yeah, totally. No, it was really well written. I actually just had lunch with the creator of the show yesterday, and I tell her all these stories of people coming up to me. I mean, I was in Italy, and some the little Italian children came up, and they're like, Bertram.
That's awesome. Yeah, and it's kind of funny too, because it's like you look like you would probably, depending, or maybe if you were like, you know, wearing a hoodie or a hat, or depending, or maybe you didn't have the mustache, like you would I'd recognize you down the street right now. I'd be like, it's Bertram. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I wasn't a kid. You know, when the kids grow up, they can kind of disappear, you know.
Yeah.
It's also wild because it has fed my TikTok career. I mean, that's another big part of my career now. It's a part-time job, and I just hit 11 million followers. It's crazy.
Insanity, man.
I cannot figure it out.
It's kind of crazy. I might have to pick your brain one day, because I don't know TikTok. I know everything else. I know YouTube. YouTube's my thing. But yeah, TikTok, I haven't had a chance. I feel like you have to be all in though on TikTok. I feel like that's the thing. Like I feel like I don't put enough time into it.
Yeah. How old are you?
I'm 33.
Yeah. So you're just a little older on the older side of when TikTok started, and it really kind of took off during the pandemic, which is when I started doing it.
Yeah.
And it was a creative outlet because I couldn't do anything else.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because like Popternative, I started in 2015 just as a podcast. And when I had time, when I wasn't working and doing my masters, I would just do interviews, right? When they came in, and edit them when I could. And then the pandemic hit, and I started interviewing, you know, cast members of Outer Banks, and everyone was home, and my channel just tripled in views. And now it's like, it could be a career. It's a media outlet. Like it's a media outlet. I'm making films. Like it's just crazy to think about.
Yeah. It's wonderful. It's wonderful how it snowballs.
Absolutely. And then last question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say it kind of. I realized the power of TikTok when, I don't know if you'd heard about this Ratatouille musical.
Yeah, of course.
That it was the first crowdsourced musical because of TikTok.
Yep.
And people just started writing mythical songs for a non-existent musical of Ratatouille. And I wrote one, and it just went viral. And we ended up producing the musical, and it ran on New Year's Day of 2021.
Yep.
And it raised $2 million for the Actors Fund.
And I'm going to add another TikTok impact mic drop for you right now. I'm sure you heard about this, but one of the new cast members that just got it added to SNL, to Saturday Night Live, was a TikTok comedian. Well,
and to bring it back to Zombie Wedding, that's how I got cast. Micah saw me and fell in love with my TikTok, and I got a straight offer. I didn't have to audition for Zombie Wedding. It was all because of TikTok.
Insane. No, I'm
hoping all the young kids. The young kids that watch TikTok are hopefully going to be directors and casting directors, and will hire me into my old age.
Hey, I want to make something with you. It'd be so much fun. I want, but you're going to be a zombie in my film. I'm sorry.
I've got to cross over to the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. But last question before we wrap up, I can't want people to see the film, and I feel like Micah would have a cool answer to this too, but you might have a different one because you're on the other side of things. Especially with indie film, Kevin, you know this. Like, so much happens before you go to camera on something like The Zombie Wedding, right? You're discussing things, you're figuring out costumes. character breakdowns, all that stuff. So from an acting storytelling perspective, you could see it as two journeys, right? Before filming something and after filming something, or does it feel like one big journey with multiple steps for you? I'm curious about that.
I think it's multiple steps.
Okay.
It's multiple steps. I mean, after you put something in the can, you sort of forget about it. And then when I got to come back to it and watch it last week, I forgot about so many things because you move on to other projects. And it was really, I was taken aback by how absurd it was and how silly and how romantic. It really, and I didn't really feel that shooting it. I felt like I was in a zombie movie, you know? And so I was really surprised by how touching it is and how funny it is.
Absolutely. The Zombie Wedding. Can't wait for people to check it out. Kevin, so great chatting with you, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate it. Hopefully we'll chat again on another project.
Absolutely. So plug away. I mean, you are on TikTok. What is that TikTok people can check out?
Oh, if you just type in my name, go to the blue check. And also I have a series coming up that's J.J. Abrams wrote and produced, co-wrote, and it's called Duster, and it takes place in the early 70s, and the title is referring to the Plymouth Duster, the muscle car. Amazing. And so it was inspired by the muscle car movies of the early 70s.
I'll have to check that out. Maybe we will
stars Josh Holloway. Do you remember Josh Holloway from Lost?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. Yeah. Oh, so good.
So, it's a great cast.
No, that's gonna be awesome. I can't wait to check that out. Well, this has been Is that Sawyer from Lost?
Yeah.
And
of course, gonna be on Max.
Yeah, so good. Was it Colony, his show too? He was on Colony, right? I think.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, it was one of those. That was one of those moments. If I got it wrong, I would just have to edit it out. But I would just. But this has been Pop Turner. YouTube.com/Pop Turner. Previous episodes. Until next time, this is Kevin Chamberlin and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.